summer, like we wish each other, on after Pesach. So late class, but being that I want to wait till Shabbos is out in the West Coast. So we'll start with a story or two and try to learn a halacha or two. Not going to go too long. I know it's late in the East Coast. So there's a story I wanted to tell from the Baal Shem Tov, Holy Baal Shem Tov. Thank you, Judith, for the inspiration of the stories of actually connected to the Omer. This is a story that happened on Lag BaOmer. As I know, this is probably a story of the first Lag BaOmer parade. We know that's a big idea to have a Lag BaOmer parade. People celebrate Lag BaOmer. So we know that the Baal Shem Tov, when he turned 36 in the year 1734, is when he revealed himself. Until that time, he was what's considered a hidden tzaddik. And he was not only a hidden tzaddik, but he was the head of the hidden tzaddikim. And we know many stories of the life of the Baal Shem Tov before he revealed himself, of how he was involved in all kind of work that was hidden work. It wasn't just the hidden tzaddik on his own, of teaching children and of organizing the hidden tzaddikim with plans. And he had ideas that how to tackle what he felt, what the tzaddikim felt was like the Jewish people needed to be revived. Their spirit was kind of dead after the Cossack uprising and the story of Shabtai Tzvi, etc. So in this story, the Baal Shem Tov would travel with his wife. Only one who knew that he was a hidden tzaddik was his dear wife Rachel, I believe. And she would travel with him, and he did his thing. And he presented himself as a very simple person, didn't know much. Like I said, we have letters of the Baal Shem Tov. He wrote his brother-in-law, his wife's brother, Reb Gershon of Kiton. He wrote it in such simple language and simple Yiddish, pleading and begging for forgiveness for being ignorant in Am Haaretz. And really, he put up a very good front. So here, the Baal Shem Tov is in a city, and he's a laborer, and they knew him as Yisraelik. Yisraelik was the person who had odd jobs, but he wasn't. Everyone thought he was a very simple person. In those days, there were still a lot of pogroms and terror from the Cossacks, groups of Ukrainian bandits that would come, and they would ransack the Jewish communities and destroy and rape and kill. So whenever they thought that something like that was happening, they would have to figure out a plan to escape. In the city where the Baal Shem Tov was at this time, it was one of these stories where word got in that the Cossacks are coming, and a huge group of Cossacks riding horses towards the city, which meant immediate death, rape, killing, plunder. So they said, what should we do? So they said, we have to run to the forest. They ran up quickly to the hills in the forest, where they were able to see the village from their viewpoint, and they're hiding in the caves, different groups of Jews and their families. Amongst them was the Baal Shem Tov and his wife, Rachel. And they're watching as the Cossacks come in and storming the city, looking for Jews to kill and rape. And when they realized that the Jews had left the city, so they start burning the city and destroying the city, trying to steal as much as they could from the city. And the Jews are terrified watching them. What's going to happen if the Cossacks decide to look in the hills? Everyone had to be quiet. And this went on for a few days. And finally, one day, the parents wake up and they see that Yisraelik, which was the simple person who lived amongst them, who was just a laborer, no one even knew how to read Hebrew, was already gathering the children. And he was starting to organize the children to some sort of, and the parents are terrified. What are you doing? You're gathering people together. You're making noise. Any kind of noise could cause attention. So he says, no, today is Lag BaOmer. And today is a special day. Today is the 33rd of the Omer, which is the yortzeit of the holy Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. And in the merit of the holy Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Akiva, whose students stopped dying on Lag BaOmer, so there's going to only be miracles. And we're going to gather the kids together, and we're going to make a parade. And the parents are saying, "Well, are you crazy? It's dangerous." But for some reason, they allowed the Yisraelik to do this parade. And the kids, he started to gather the kids, and he said, "Let's march together and sing a song, the songs that we honor for Lag BaOmer, for Reb Shimon Bar Yochai." And at first, the kids were just whispering the songs, but Baal Shem Tov was singing strong, and his face was lit on fire. And the parents right away realized that this is not just the regular Yisraelik that they thought, some simple person. Obviously, he was someone very special that was hiding. in his true identity, and the children started to join in the energy of the Baal Shem Tov, and soon the children were shouting the songs of Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, and Yisrael was walking around in the forest with them, and the parents were still terrified, but they saw that there's something very special going on. And afterwards, the Baal Shem Tov, later we know this is the Baal Shem Tov, gathered the children, and he sat them down and he started to tell them stories and midrashim like he would, good words, and gave them all little food that he prepared for them to eat and for them to make a bracha. And the parents are just the whole time their mamish, their hearts are in their mouths. They're so terrified because any attention, any noise could cause the Cossacks that were destroying their city to come and look for them and kill them. And all of a sudden, as they're watching, all of a sudden all the Cossacks start running out of the city not in an organized way towards the mountain, but in all directions in a panic. So first they thought, they weren't sure. They waited and waited. And they were gone. When they finally made it down the mountain, they found out what happened was that the soldiers thought they heard news that the Polish army was coming, and they were terrified because they were bandits. So they escaped, and there they saw the miracle, the Holy Baal Shem Tov. By the time they turned around to try to find the Baal Shem Tov and give him the honor he deserved, he, of course, him and his wife packed their bags and they moved on to the next place. So that's a story of the Baal Shem Tov. And I just want to say one more story, probably we're going to learn a law too, of connected to the next week's parsha. This week's parsha is Shmini. Next week we learn about the laws of leprosy. And starting from Sunday, we start reading the Torah about the laws of leprosy. Here's an amazing story. This is a deep story. So it goes like this, that there's a famous dynasty they call the Chernobyl dynasty. They're actually very much connected to Chabad because we know the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was a descendant from the Chernobyls as well, because the Alter Rebbe made a shidduch with the Chernobyl Rebbes. The first Chernobyl Rebbe, which was one of the eldest of the students of the Holy Maggid the Mizrich, the student of the Baal Shem Tov, was Reb Nachum Chernobyl. Reb Nachum Chernobyl had a son, Reb Mordechai Chernobyl. He was the one who was the great-grandfather of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Reb Mordechai Chernobyl, which today the descendants are known as the Twersky family, which are well known till today, that are descendants of the Chernobyl dynasty. So Mordechai Chernobyl was a big tzaddik, and he had in his house a servant that had like a kind of, not a leprosy, but a very strong psoriasis, a very bad skin, that he mamish suffered boils. His body was covered from head to foot with psoriasis and boils and skin disease, always itching and always in tremendous pain. And he was one of the attendants, the servants in the house of Reb Mordechai Chernobyl. Now, everyone wondered one thing. Reb Mordechai Chernobyl was a very compassionate person, and he always listened to people's problems and was there for people when they needed him. And here, with this young boy, the Reb Mordechai Chernobyl was indifferent to his suffering. Everyone was wondering that they felt it was a little cold or distant or disconnected to his own attendants, his own servants' suffering. One day, Reb Mordechai Chernobyl comes into the house, and he sees this young boy. He's a Jewish boy. He's pashut crying, in such pain. He's scratching everywhere. Blood is pouring from his body, from his wounds. So Reb Mordechai Chernobyl looked up to heaven and he said, "God, enough already. This has to stop." And then within a few hours later, this boy passed away. So the family now was really trying to figure out what was going on. So here's the amazing story. It's not an easy story to understand. We could discuss it more in the shmuz, where the Reb Mordechai Chernobyl said like this. He said that my father, Reb Nachum Chernobyl, that's the father of Reb Mordechai Chernobyl, was when he started off as a young man and he was a student of I think also the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. He was very, very poor. Our family was very poor. We had mamish nothing to live on. There was a rich man in the city who really liked my father. And he mamish helped my father. He supported all his needs and took care of him with love and compassion and understanding. One day, this wealthy man comes to Reb Nachum Chernobyl and says, "I would like to make a shidduch. I would like that my daughter should marry your son, the current Chernobyl Rebbe, Reb Nachum Chernobyl, the one who's talking, that he wanted his daughter to marry Nachum Chernobyl, Mordechai Chernobyl." And Reb Nachum said, "Sorry, as much as I appreciate all what you've done for me and all you're doing for me, for my family, I can't agree to this shidduch." Didn't explain why. And the rich person kept on pressing and promising more help, and he'll pay for the wedding, and they'll make sure the chassan isn't the couple's not lacking nothing. But Reb Nachum Shnabel said, "Sorry, I can't agree to this shidduch, to this match." The person was so offended that not only was he no longer a a friend, he became a severe enemy of Reb Nachum Shnabel, mamish making his life difficult, doing as much, going out of his way to really make the life of the Rebbe miserable. So from being a big supporter, he became his biggest enemy. So low did he fall that one day he had people, when he found out that the Rebbe's daughter was going to the mikveh at night, and the mikvehs are kind of out of the city, as we know, for the woman. So she was walking alone at night in the dark, and he had people follow her and harass her and antagonize her and scare her. Mama, she was panicked. She came running into the house. She fainted. It took a while to recover. She became horrible. A little bit after that story, when he mamish harassed the daughter of Reb Nachum, the person became sick and passed away. When he went to Shemaim, he goes to heaven. So in heaven, they were horrified at his behavior at the end of his life, how he harassed, especially the story with this young woman, and they were going to give him the harshest decree of punishment. But other angels came and said, sorry, what about all the years he supported the Rebbe? What about all the help he gave? So they were going back and forth in heaven, the Sifta Shemaila, Bezdin Shemaila, the upper courts. Finally, they decided they're going to take the soul of this person, bring him to Reb Nachum Shnabel, and if he gets forgiveness from the Rebbe, then that will be okay. So the soul comes to the Rebbe and is taken by two angels. And the Rebbe says to the Rebbe, I'm pleading forgiveness of everything I've done to you. So he goes, well, if you want to ask forgiveness, you have to list all the sins you've done to me. So he starts listing every sin. He says, oh, forgiven mamish, I forgive you 100%, zero feeling. I forgive every single one of the horrible things he mamish did to Reb Nachum. Reb Nachum was mamish forgiving him. When he came to the story of the daughter, he said, no, this I can't forgive. I can't forgive what you did to my daughter. It's a shame not just to me, to my family, to my ancestors, a shame to Yiddishkeit. I mean, the story doesn't describe how far they went in the harassment of this woman, but you can imagine it was really bad. And so he says, no, I can't forgive. So they went back to heaven. They said, what can we do? So they decided that he's going to have to come back to this world and suffer. So he comes back to this world, and in that point, Reb Nachum Shnabel passed away. And he comes to his son, Motzaei Shnabel, the one that was stories, is telling us the story, and said, this young boy, I want you to take him in as an attendant. And Reb Mordechai knew that this was the soul of the rich person who harassed his family. And he was mamish, like we said, suffering from pain, suffering from bleeding, and suffering from all the tsaras, the leprosy that he had. And so that's why Reb Mordechai said, I never paid attention to him, because I knew that what he was going through was part of his atonement. But when I saw yesterday, the pain he was in, the mamish, the severe, I said to God, it's enough. The punishment has to end. You have to forgive this person and bring him to heaven, to his place of glory. So it's not such a fascinating ending to this story, but this is a story connected to leprosy. Like I said, it's a complicated story, but it's connected to this week's parsha. All right, so we're going to try to learn a halacha or two of the laws of tefillah, where we're holding chapter 19, I believe. Let's bring up the page. Hold on. There we go. Oops. Okay, let's share the page. Okay. So we're holding law number 22. It's actually the last law of the parak. It says, we're talking about the laws of Shemoneh Esrei. So it says like this: Shikur, someone who's drunk. If you reach the level of you're incapable of talking to someone in a respectful way, meaning to someone, if you had to talk to someone important, right? They would say this is not a time to make a pitch or to have a conversation. So obviously talking to God is obviously not correct and proper in such a situation. So not only should he not davening, it's forbidden. Asr lispal, he or she should not daven in such a situation. One of the sources we find about this is when Shmuel's mother, Chana, right, is davening for her son. Eli thinks that she's after a lot of wine. What happens if the person says, "No, I'm going to daven anyways. I know I'm very intoxicated. I'm gonna pray anyways. I wanted to pray." So the Kitzur says, "To'eva, it's an abomination to pray such a way." But and not only is it an abomination, but it's not considered as if you daven, and therefore, if you're able, when you sober up, you have to re-pray the prayer that you prayed. That itself was an abomination. What happens if by the time you get out of you sober up, it's already past the time of davening? Then you could make up by saying two Shemoneh Esreis, right? Like we're going to learn in chapter 21, where if a person is by mistake or out of their control, cannot pray, can make it up with a double Shemoneh Esrei. We'll learn about the details of that later. So too, this person, when he or she sobers up, should do that in the time that when you sober up. If it's too late, then you do two tefillos. In the Hebrew, he says he doesn't translate into English, but the laws of a woman, din tefillah b'isha nida. What about a woman who, while she's during her period time, is discussed in chapter 153, which I guess the laws of family purity. Okay, let's see the footnotes here. Okay, when wine is removed from him, obviously when the person, he or she becomes sober. Okay, let's learn a few more laws. We're going to go to chapter 19. Now, this law is very much connected to where we're holding in the year. We all know that in the first day of Pesach, we hold on, Aaron, a second. We changed the prayer for rain. So for the prayer for rain, we're going to learn the laws of how we do that. Yes, Aaron.
Okay, the law you just mentioned, how does that work for Purim?
That was my question too.
Great minds think alike. Excellent question. Therefore, you should know it's actually brought down in Shulchan Aruch about Ma'ariv on Purim. What happens on Ma'ariv on Purim? Because of that, it's brought down. But yeah, if the question is, what does it mean? How drunk does it have to be? It means if you can't articulate a conversation in a respectable manner, right? It means you're slobbering all over yourself. So yeah, Purim says ad lo yada. So either you wait till you sober up, or you stop if you feel you have to stop to do Ma'ariv, right? You could stop, after Shkia. But that question is brought up in the laws of Purim, where a person, we're met with that. That's one of the times of the year because even Simchas Torah, we don't start our Kiddush until after Ma'ariv. But Purim is an issue, and it's brought down in the laws of Purim. But again, if you're holding the level you can't articulate, so then you can't daven Ma'ariv. He says it's abomination. Yes, Rebecca.
So I was thinking about in a case where Purim Day is on Friday and you have someone has their Suda and like you can push off, like you have to daven Kabbalah Shabbos like right after candle lighting. So, it's not the kind of thing where you just wait it out.
Well, okay, so that actually is not so simple. That falls under the laws of Paris Map and Makadesh. Paris Map and Makadesh is that there is a law that if you're doing a Suda Friday into Shabbos, so what you do is the halacha is you cover the bread. We're not going to go into the details of that law, but you cover the challah, you make kiddush, and you continue the meal. You bench and then you daven ma'ariv. So that's the laws of Paris Map and Makadesh. Those are complicated laws. And Paris Mappa means to cover the bread. Mappa, you put a mappa like a covering over the chalas. And Makadesh, you make kiddush. So that's how you could do it. That you do not have to you do not have to daven ma'ariv on Purim if you want to continue the Suda into the night. And that could be done also, for instance, if you go, I think there could be let's say this year's Shavuos, I think it is, right? This year's Shavuos for Eretz Yisrael, I think this year's Shavuos is Friday Shabbos. So I think that's the breakdown. So then let's say you're going through this Yom Tif into Shabbos, it's the same idea. It's Paris Map and Makadesh. You could cover the bread and make Kiddush, but you have to be familiar with the laws before you do that. Number one. Number two is some people will break up for a minyan and come back to wash. It's not so simple also to stop to daven. If you could, those laws are complicated. It means if you could daven, do you have to bench first? Don't you have to bench first? All those laws have to be learned in the time that we learned them. But as far as your point goes about the drinking, that's not necessarily the scenario that you have to bench when the Shabbos comes in. Okay, so let's start learning this. It says these are the laws dealing with additions to Shemoneh Esrei. Okay, b'choyref in the winter. So we say in the Shemoneh Esrei in the Amidah, we all know in the second blessing we say mash. Okay, this is different minhagim. There's different customs of the wording over here. So we say mashiv haruach hamar degeshem. Okay, so we say causer of wind to blow and rain to fall. That's the blessing we say. That's the insertion we have in the second blessing as a praise to Hashem about the rain, winter weather. And when do we start saying this? From Musaf, from the Musaf prayer on Shemoneh Esrei, which is the final day of Sukkot, right? Before Simchas Torah. Bahashamish machris, and the shamish meaning like the gabbai, or the attendant of the shul, the one who makes the announcements. Again, just a footnote about this idea about announcing and clapping, all these things. When you have a shul that has a system, you have to allow the system to run. So if you have a system where only the shamash, the person who's the attendant, he is the one that makes the announcements and the banging and the what have you, then people should not be getting out of line and pre-announcing or thinking that that's their job. That's the job of the shamash. So the shamash is machris, calls out mikoidim before the Shemoneh Esrei. Mashiv Ruach Amar Degesh. And by saying that pronunciation we're going to see is not just the reminder, but also sets. It goes into effect. How do we know that it's not just in a reminder? Because this is how the Kitzur continues. What happens if the shamash doesn't announce Mashiv Haruach Umar Dageshem before the silent Shemoneh Esrei? Ein oimrim oisei azbit tefillah musaf halachos. Then you do not say it. You continue with Morid Hatol in the second blessing because he didn't announce it. So then what happens? We'll see. Then we start doing it in the loud Shemoneh Esrei. He says chayla only because that would be the reason you wouldn't be in shul. If someone is sick and davening alone in their house, seemingly that would apply to anyone davening alone in their house without a minyan. V'chein also b'nei kfarim, or if it's out of your, you couldn't because you're a villager, which we're learning about the laws in Purim. She'ein lehem minyan, that has no minyan to go to. So when should you start saying Mashiv Ruach Amar Degeshem? If in theory you have to wait for the klap, for the announcement of the shamash. Yamtinu b'tfilas musav ad hashosh bevada yispalu b'yaris musav. So then what you do is you wait until you know for sure that the shul nearest to you that you use as your go-to community is davening musav, right? You can't just say I'm in Seattle. I'm going to say, oh, New York, they're saying it already. That doesn't make that. You mean something within an area of yours that is saying musav. Then you could assume that they've already davened musav and they start to say Mashiv Ruach Amar Degeshem, and so should you. How long do we say Mashiv Ruach Amar Degeshem, which is the prayer for the praise for rain, which is the praise for the winter weather, is until Musav, which we just finished less than 2 weeks ago, the first day of Passover. The first day of Pesach is when we stop saying Mashiv Ruach Amar Degeshem and we start to say Moed Hatol. Here, this is not different customs. The custom of the Kitzur is that everyone says Mashiv Ruach Amar Degeshem, including the silent Musav. Everyone says Mashiv Ruach Amar Degeshem on the first day of Passover. And only when the Chazan says the loud repetition, and we have the special tefillas tal, do we switch over from saying Mashiv Ruach Amar Degeshem until Moed Hatol. And when he repeats the he stops saying it. And we don't say Mashiv Ruach Amar Degeshem in the mincha, meaning in the prayers going forward. Because we heard from the repetition that we stop saying Moed Degeshem. Now, so far, he didn't say that we switched to Moed Hatol. So from we know what we know now in the law is that we only say Masha V'ruach Amar Geshem in the winter, from Shmini Atzeres, from when the Shamash claps on the Bima, until the repetition of the Shemoneh Esrei Musaf by day. Going forward, Mincha, we stop saying Masha V'ruach Amar Geshem. He doesn't say that we insert anything different. That we're going to learn in a second. This is what about to get a person who is davening alone. So when does he or she stop saying Masha V'ruach Amar Geshem? So then you have to make sure to daven musaf early. Means as early as you can to make, or at least earlier than you know the minyan is starting to daven, to make sure that the chazan hasn't started to emit the Masha V'ruach, and then you shouldn't be saying it. Because if you know for sure the chazan daven musaf and stopped saying Masha V'ruach, then it's not time for you to say Masha V'ruach anymore, and you have to admit it even if you're holding Shachris. There's again, we're going to get into the law's detail about that a little soon. What happens if you're not holding with the minyan? Now he has what the custom is. But there are places. So he has another nusach, that God who gives the wind and who lets the dew fall. And then again, the chazan, the shamish announces it Rosh Hashanah before Musaf that you should start saying Moirid Hatol. But then in his nusach is Masha V'ruach Moirid Hatol. And then we do say it in the silent Shemoneh Esrei, and we stop saying the Moirid Geshem. So there we don't say. So according to so the difference would be, according to this Yesh Mekaimais, that if we are saying nothing, so we say in the silent Shemoneh Esrei, not with Masha V'ruach Moed Geshem. If the Chazan announces Moed Hatal, then we start Moed Hatal in the silent Shemoneh Esrei. Okay, yes, Rebecca.
Moed Hatal is not in the Ashkenazi Siddurim here.
Oh, it's not by your nusach either. Not at all. You just take out Masha V'ruach Moed Geshem.
Yeah.
You don't insert anything in.
It doesn't say. I thought you only say that in Israel.
No, and I mean, this Chabad, I think maybe it's Nusach Sfard, we say Moed Hatal. We don't say Masha V'ruach Moed Hatal. Our Nusach is Moed Hatal.
So maybe Ashkenazim don't say Moed Hatal?
Could be. I mean, we have a special tefillah. Do you have a special tefillah musaf on
Yeah.
Pesach for Tal?
We do.
Okay, interesting. I have to check, and let me check more into that. Here, let's see, maybe the footnotes will help us a little
But
bit.
after that tefillah, that's when you start saying Mashiva Ruach Marida Geshem. That we do say. We just
No, that's tefillah's Geshem. That's on Shemoneh Esrei. There's two tefillahs that the Chazan does special.
So
one is tefillah's Geshem, that I guess everyone has that. The tefillah for rain, which we do on the Musaf of Shmini Atzeres. And then we have the Tefillas Tal that we do Musaf of Pesach. You don't have Tefillas Tal?
Oh, I wasn't there, but I have a Pesach Machzor here, so I'm gonna check.
Check. Let me know.
I'll check. Okay.
Okay, so footnote number. Let's go footnote number 1. What are we talking about here? Because they have already heard the Chazan has discontinued saying it. Meaning to say that when you heard the Chazan to discontinue saying Masha V'ruach Moed Geshem and Musaf of the first day of Pesach. So then going forward in Mincha, everyone admits it, and those who add in Moed Hatal, add in Moed Hatal. In other words, hearing the Chazan repeat the Shemoneh Esrei, it seems from the language, that Rebecca, that there is no Tefillas Tal. In other words, hearing the Chazan repeat the Shemoneh Esrei without adding Masha V'ruach is equivalent to public announcement. Okay, we see over here, this is a very interesting thing. The public announcement, usually we like to look at the public announcement as someone getting excited in the middle. Everyone likes to clap on the thing. The public announcement actually brings into effect the law, the custom. Yes, Aaron?
I was just going to say, our rabbi just mentions that we, switch it over.
Okay, so in your shul, obviously, you're saying the bracha for tal, for do, right?
Yeah, but he reminds us that now to switch.
Okay, let's see. Here we go. We don't have to wonder anymore. We had him in footnote number 2. During the summer months, there are 3 customs. A, Nusach Ashkenaz. Okay, which Rebecca pointed out, adds nothing to replace Masha V'ruach or Moed Geshem. They just take it out. Again, so according to the Kitzur, they would take it out from the repetition of the Musaf, meaning the regular person is Mincha. Number 2 is the Sephardic Hasidic congregations, which Chabad follows, who follow Nusach Sfard, the Vilna Gaon also, and those residing in Eretz Yisrael add Moed Atol, he brings down dew. Okay, his language is Mashiv Haruch Moed Atol. Our Nusach is, our custom is we say Moed Atol. C, a third custom, still others add Mashiv Haruch Moed Atol, which is what he brings in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Okay, all right, ladies and gents, I think we'll stop here. We'll see how much longer we could make this class work. All right. Toda rabah. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank
Shavua
you.
tov. Welcome.